with Chandra and are taking this opportunity to sit with me, with all of us here together. I thank you as well. Just by a show of hands, who is in regular attendance with Chandra's classes, meditation? Wonderful. So again, thank you for being here. I know that this is a different offering than what Chandra has offered, or maybe not, perhaps. I have sat with her before, but the last time I did, was a different buff, if you will. So before I get into introducing myself, or really where we're going to go over the course of this evening, as well as the next couple of evenings, what I'd like to have us do is just invite us into the space. And so one way that I'm going to invite us into the space, I'm going to bring my arms over my head as though I were reaching a set of rings, and imagine and feel as though the ribs are lifting out of the pelvic floor, out of the base of the pelvis. And then bring your arms down and just let them come. They can either come to your lap, they can come to the knees. I'm going to have us gently close our eyes and allow for us to settle into the space. So settle into the space of our seat, into this place, the alembic, the geographical location where we are, and for those of us who are streaming as well, settling into that place. And begin to notice how you feel in the body at this time. We've all had a course of a day. Took us time to arrive here, and just notice how your body feels. And I'm going to invoke some qualities. You could say the gunas, the qualities that have been used to describe the nature of the universe in many ways. So whether or not we're just feeling a sense of heaviness or lightness in the body, whether there's a feeling of coldness or warmth, whether there's a sense of stability or sthira or chala, this feeling or desire to move. Noticing, sensing if there's a sense of any areas of the body that feel contraction, that can feel like tightness or pain, stuckness, or if there's a feeling sense of flow. And without going into the story of these feelings, senses, qualities, just observing them, allowing ourselves to settle into the space of our body, and seeing with an inquisitive eye rather than the eye of stories, of narratives. And you can use awareness to gently scan the body, just noticing again, moment to moment, what arises. Taking a few moments more with that. We'll bring our attention to the breath and notice where, perhaps in the body, you feel the breath and the quality of the breath. So does the breath feel smooth or rough? Does the breath feel slow or quick? Is there a sense of evenness? or more of a staccato quality? Is there a sense of dryness or damp moisture associated with the breath? Again, noticing where we may feel restriction or flow with the breath. And without judging or being or going into narrative, once again, just feeling, connecting with the breath. And knowing that all experiences are temporary. And just allowing for that moment to moment awareness, moment to moment wakefulness, connecting with the breath. Continue to just ride and sense, connect. The eyes can be open or closed, whatever feels good for our bodies. And if we step away, so to speak, from the breath, our mind, our awareness, our presence, gently draw it back to the breath. Mind and prana, if you will, this is moving forward, are inextricably linked. So one of the most powerful tools we have for noticing mind is noticing where is our breath. And using that as a pivot, if you will, just noticing now, bringing our attention to the mind. Noticing the qualities, if you will, the presence of our mind. Is there a sense of sthira, of stability, of being yoked to the here and now, to the body, to our presence here on our seat? Or is there a sense of mobility, of jumping, if you will? Is there a quickness or a slowness to the thoughts? Is there a sense of evenness? And just noticing, and allow the breath to also be the container, if you will. That the breath and the mind rides the winds of the breath. Allow for the breath to become subtle. Subtle yet expansive. See if these two qualities can play together. And allow for the mind to be subtle. Allow for the mind to be expansive. Stay with your experience. And eyes can be open or closed. And taking 3 more subtle, expansive breaths. And after that last breath, if the eyes are closed, gently open the eyes. Have the gaze be soft and enter into the space. The eyes open, almost welcoming the elements that we receive through the eyes. The openness. Great. Welcome, everyone. My name is Luke. As I said, for those who are here, when we arrived, that I'm really happy to be here. And today is the first day of, first evening, rather, of, yes, of the rest of our lives, moment to moment. Very happy for that. Thank you. So today I'm here to join with you in an experience of exploring the breath. And the name of the series, which will go on for the next several Tuesdays until March 26th, I entitled Respira, the Architecture of the Breath, Shaping the Breath, Shaping the Mind. And just a little bit about it before we get started. We kind of opened it up with this idea of working with the body, working with the breath, and working with the mind. Oftentimes, the breath is something that we just kind of assume. Then again, for some of us, who have come through different traditions, it's central to everything. So what we really, in the sense, this work that we're going to be doing today, as well as the concurrent Tuesdays, is based on something that's called Respira Method. For some of you who are coming here today, it may have been in the interest of exploring Yantra Yoga, the foundations of the Tibetan yoga of movement. I am an instructor in that. My teacher, Chogyam Kainarbu, is a Dzogchen master, and he brought Yantra Yoga to the West. Essentially, this work that we're going to be doing together this evening is based on something called Respira Method. And Respira is a distillation of what Fabio Andrico, one of the two senior instructors of Yantra Yoga, distilled from the teachings of Yantra Yoga. So in a way, it's not separate from, but in a lot of ways, it takes something that Fabio, in his, I'd say 40, when I was looking through the book and also having studied with him over, now quite a while, what I understood was that oftentimes, even though he had been teaching Yantra Yoga for 40 years, and even though he had been discussing how important the breath is, and even though the architecture of Yantra Yoga is in and to understand really how to work with the breath, it was still being overlooked. It was still being there was still this opportunity to examine in a deeper way and a simpler way, in a sense, the breath. And so Respira Method, or what is now Respira, previously it was known as harmonious breathing, developed out of that. It developed out of the interest and desire to see that people who were sincerely interested in Yantra Yoga were still kind of trying to understand what we meant by these particular holds and shaping the breath, et cetera, et cetera. And so what Respira Method is a set of simple exercises that are meant to experience and discover the breath in a new way. And that is really the essence. It's a system of taking the breath and looking at movements and examining them, not through, like some of us, who have a background in yoga or whatnot, we might go in and to our vinyasa and really go through Surya Namaskar, go into a camel pose and go into it through the structural place. What we're going to be doing is taking something and looking at it from the inside out. So we might be using something like the bridge, but not necessarily but to really feel it in our body. And so this is really an opportunity, maybe I guess closer akin to a yin yoga practice for those who have done yin, where you're sitting in a pose for 20 minutes, you're feeling into the pose and you're allowing the breath to move and be more at play. So that is a way to say what Respira Method is about. Another thing to say about it is that it's really a way for understanding how to breathe in a complete sense, in a natural way. This was distilled again from Yantra Yoga. Perhaps there will be an opportunity for us to take and explore Yantra, but I really felt when we laid this out, originally it was put on the calendar as a foundations practice. And what I really wanted, the intent is when we teach Yantra Yoga, we teach it as a deep dive, that we spend 14 hours going into it over the course of a weekend. And at the end, we come through and have an opportunity to work with something that when we come back to it, it's almost like coming to a Mysore Ashtanga Yoga class practice. Then we're like coming into it, or a Tai Chi set, where you've kind of learned how you're going to actually move and what's going to happen within it. I felt for us, if we wanted to do that here, having dropping in might feel a little bit discombobulating, both for people who are attending the fullness of the 5 weeks, as well as for people who are attending as a standalone. So this is really how this has come together. A couple more things before we get into practice and movement, and is that, as I said, this came out of Yantra Yoga, a tradition that began in Tibet in the 8th century. All of that to say that movement, and this might be familiar for many of you, and others, this might be the first time hearing this, but oftentimes when we are looking at yoga, we see it as a structural, we're like looking to get into the pose. In the traditional systems, there was a structural component, there was a functional component that was connected to our energy. And our breath is connected to our energy. Our breath is connected to our vitality. When we've translated even prana, it's often assumed that it merely means breath. But, I'm a practitioner and student of Ayurveda. The idea that the mind and breath, the mind and prana are inextricably linked. For those who are acupuncturists or coming from Chinese medicine that has a long history as well, we know that the blood and the qi are inextricably linked, and maybe the qi and the mind are inextricably linked. And so when we even think about breathing, oftentimes it's just there's we leave out the mind, but we know that if someone is asking us to slow down and take a deep breath, really what they're doing is invoking this ability to settle the mind, to bring our emotions back into their seat, if you will. And I just wanted to quote Rinpoche, Chogyam Namkhai Norbu, in saying, our breathing is connected to and conditioned by our mind, by emotions. When we are nervous, we breathe with nervousness. When happy, we breathe with happiness. When worried, we breathe with worry. Because breathing is influenced by the mind, is conditioned by the mind, and the mind is often confused, distracted, and tense. In Yantra Yoga, we say that breathing is like a blind horse, and the mind like a lame rider. The lame rider could ride the horse, and so the horse can be controlled. Everything is interdependent. So if we are in control of our breathing or have some control over the mind, everything becomes easier. For this reason, first of all, we have to stabilize our respiration. And for many of us, our days are filled with tasks. They're filled with terse or short conversations. They're filled with getting ourselves to and from our sites of home, of work. We know that for me personally, the place really, my yoga mat is not here. It's on the 580 heading west. That is really where my yoga mat is, because anyone who's ever driven with me knows that that's the place where it's easiest to lose my practice. It's the easiest place to lose my presence. It's the easiest place for me to see that my emotions of wonderment of what's going on change. And so, we can understand if that's happening every day, that it's very easy for me to lose presence when I'm in a car, by myself in my little bubble. I know that the wind, my wind, becomes impassioned. It becomes hot. It becomes angry. Then I lose my breath. Then I lose presence. So one of the most profound and simple ways to really kind of come back to that, to use the word yoga, is to yoke it, is to bring it back into the body, to bring the mind back with the breath. And so that will be by and large what we're doing. As I was sharing, when Rinpoche brought Yantra yoga to the West, he settled in Tibet in 1961 after he left Tibet. Yantra yoga and the Tibetan medicine were inextricably linked. Yoga, as it's been transmitted to the West in many regards, has been not always, but oftentimes taught with the Ayurveda, with the systems. And so we really have to look and see that the body and the breath are, with the mind, the three gates of existence. That we have the primacy of this body, we have the breath, which is the gate and the bridge between the mind, and then we have the mind, which is subtle. And so I'll just say, to invite ourselves to recognize that that's what we're going to be doing through the course of this evening and through the next 4 Tuesdays. So before we get into some warm-ups, what I'd like us to do is kind of what I'm going to call, and what Fabio calls, the quick start. So if it's available to you, if you're sitting on the ground, come to a version of child's pose in Vajrasana with your knees together. And if you're on a chair, whether at home or here, you can continue sitting on the chair, but at the edge of the chair and with your feet on the ground. Bring your belly to your thighs and imagine yourself the same way that you were watching television as a kid, with your chin in your hands. Knees together. If this is difficult for anyone, you can use a prop. You can use the zafu. Begin to breathe into the belly. Notice how the shape and influence of this position changes your breath. Notice where you feel expansion. Notice where you feel any difficulties with the breath. Breath can be smooth, subtle. And if you are breathing calm, steady, pepper a few vigorous breaths. Try breathing through the nose if you're not already. Take 2 more breaths. Release the head. Roll the spine up. Close the eyes. Notice the breath. Notice where you feel the breath. We're just using these positions to kind of warm up, if you will, the breath. From here, opening the eyes, bring the knees apart. Same position, hands on the chin. Notice how just even this change in position may facilitate change in the breath. You may start to feel the breath in a different place in the body. You may start to feel the breath travel up you could say the central aspect of the chest, sternum. There's more space in the belly to expand, diaphragm to expand radially. And 2 more breaths here. Allow for the mind to stay with the breath. Allow for the breath or the body to influence the shape of the breath. Release the chin, rolling back up. Again, close the eyes. Just notice. Notice if there's any change. If so, what's changed? Does there feel to be more space or perhaps less? Maybe some emotions have bubbled up. The intent is to feel more possibility with the flow of the breath as we open the space. And we'll go into the next and final position, which will be, again, coming down to the ground, placing the hands on the floor, either stacked one on top of the other, or if you wish, you can place your head on the ground and place it off to the side or face down with the forehead on the ground. Again, continue breathing. When we say breathing from below, we mean initiating the breath, if you will, from the diaphragm. Notice how the shape may influence the breath. Again, you can pepper in some vigorous breaths, some stronger, quicker. One more breath here. Place the arms, hands down beneath the shoulders, roll up. Again, just seated. Notice where you feel the breath. Okay, and the eyes can open. So this is just kind of a quick start, if you will, but the idea when we talk about complete breathing in Respira, if this is uncomfortable to sit, you can, of course, find whatever's a more comfortable position because we're going to start moving. But the idea is that where we've gone from is really breathing into this region at the level of the diaphragm, say navel breathing, into the second position was to really start to bring the breath upward. And the third one was to really bring it into the thoracic area. These are the three, in Respira, we talk about abdominal, thoracic, and upper or clavicular breathing. And the idea is that the lungs sit, it's a very big organ, and the diaphragm sits here at the ribs. When we talk about breathing, utilizing the three aspects, it's really to bring this complete breathing, oftentimes through the course of our day, whether we're seated in a position for 8 hours. The shape of our breath, the shape of our body influences how we're breathing. There was a reason that yogis developed practices that enabled the channels, when we're at the idea of reaching and creating the stable position. And later we'll talk about the seat of Vairocana. The idea was that the channels were aligned, the body was open, and we had already done movements that enabled our practice to develop that, anywhere energetically for our meditation that, we'd already cleared the spaces. So the idea is to have that same possibility, utilizing some very simple exercises. So we're going to do some warm-ups. These may be familiar. I know that when I was here with Chandra, she did some of the movements she may have called them Pawa Muktasana. Pawa means air. Muktasana means to liberate. And so these are simple movements. We do some of these in the Yantra yoga. They're done in a lot of practices. So we're going to start with that. So I'm going to just bring my arms in front of me, and we're going to start with the upper body, and then we're going to inhale, exhale. Last one. Then rotating the wrists, inhaling and exhaling. You can already perhaps hear some of the wind in the joints, if you will. If you hear the creaking of these old joints of mine. So energy, we can say, gets trapped in the joints. We want to change directions. And we know if we are meditators long-term, if we've just started our practice, or if we're long-term, we want to keep energy flowing, right? We want to be comfortable in our seat. And so this is one way just to start working with that. You can stop shaking. Good. This is more from a Yantra yoga practice and coming back. And then we're going to shrug the shoulders in, out. Last one. Inhale the arms up, palms up. Feel the fingertips extending out to the sides. So really feel as though the chest is elevating slightly. And then we're going to exhale, and we're going to bring the 5 fingertips together at the shoulder crease, and we're going to inhale. Try to bring the shoulders, the elbows together, whether you're going forwards or back. So as you inhale, try to keep the elbows close towards one another, in and out, down. Here, we don't necessarily have a focus point, if you will, with these warm-ups, but let's change directions. But we can stay with the breath. And I've started to speak about the abdominal phase of the breath. So breathing through the nose is going to be fundamental to what we're doing, and exhaling through the nose. And the trajectory of today's practice is really to start to invoke the abdominal phase as we continue through the program. Last one here, exhale, release. Good. We will start to integrate intercostal, thoracic, dorsal, clavicular. So like various ways to understand how the breath moves. So here I'm going to bring my feet out in front of me. We all have mats, hopefully, or something like them. We'll inhale, exhale. Inhale, draw the toes towards you, exhale. Exhale, down, in, out. I know Chandra does some of the movements from the shadow yoga. So like we're going to do the ankle movements seated today. Later, I will do some of the ones that are similar as well, familiar to y'all. So here I'm just going to bring I have got enough of a width for my toes to inhale and exhale. And again, these might already be common to you, but even though these are really simple, I am doing these every day. This is like the kind of like where I start even a 20-minute yoga practice is just warming up the joints and then moving into deeper movements. And this, I think, is common amongst many martial arts traditions and in the yoga traditions as well. So if you haven't changed directions already, change. And coming to neutral, I'm going to bring the right ankle. And if you're wearing socks, that's fine. Otherwise, if you have open toes, you can interlace your toes and fingers and rotating the joints. So ankle churning. Other way. And the breath can either be like with the movement or it can be kind of free of the movement itself. Good. Release that and gently shake the ankle. This is something that we do in Yantra, or the shaking of the joints. I'll go with the other side, churning. And change directions. Good. Release, shake. Good. And moving to the knee. You're going to interlace the hands underneath the thigh. And you're going to gently, as though you were trying to shake a banana from a branch. So you're shaking the knee. The foot is heavy. Good. And then coming to neutral, right there. And then we're going to inhale and exhale.
Why would you want to shake the banana?
That's a good question, but eventually I will have the banana. This is my own. This is a part of this tree, at least. You have your own banana, it's true. Good. Come to neutral. We'll switch sides. Shake. Good. Spine can be long. Coming to neutral. Inhale, exhale. Change. Other way. Last one. Good. Release the leg. Coming back to the right side, I'm going to interlace my hands on either side of the foot. My knee is bent. And I'm going to take the knee or the foot and I'm going to bring it towards me. So I'm rowing. This is a warm-up from the Yantra Yoga series. So we do 5 basic movements for loosening the joints. And one is called Polwa for the hips. You could say this is one of the things that a lot of us here in, I would say the United States, but Europe too, sit at chairs a lot. So we kind of lose the ability to come into a squat or sit on the ground. So when we come to the ground and we sit for long times, we feel the tightness, shortness in the hips. Good. And from here, just bring a knee to the chest. We'll switch out sides. Inhaling, exhaling. And last one, scoop the leg towards the body. Try to keep the spine long if you can. And here I'm like kind of actively pressing my foot into the crook of my elbow to open up this outer aspect of the thigh, the glutes. Good. And bringing the knee towards the chest. Good. Let me see if there are any soles of the feet together. Actually. And gently pulsing. We'll do one more kind of out of the Yantra yoga practice for opening the inner thigh as well, which can be tight. And we're going to come to neutral. Inhale the arms up, and then exhale, bring the arms down, and then reaching forward. Inhale, coming. Exhale, fold. In. Out. Inhale up. Exhale. I should say that for anyone, if there's any pain, we're not necessarily moving into pain, but we can use the breath to kind of modulate our experience. So just working to the edge, not necessarily trying to push through discomfort. Inhale, coming up. Good. All right. So this will be, I'm going to leave that as our warm-ups for today. Next Tuesday, I'll pepper in some other ones, and we'll revisit some of the ones that we've gone through today. What I'd like to do at this point, are there any questions or anything that anybody's? So the arc of and trajectory of how we're going to work is moving from sensing, connecting, warming up, doing warm-ups such as this, and then going into some movements that are more meant for facilitating and understanding the breath in new ways. And I'll just say, looking at it with kind of the eyes of a child and just seeing, like, I always am asking myself, is this me? Is this what's going on? Like, is this real? Or am I just making this up? I have to, and I'm like, when I've been sitting with other people who do this same practice, I'm like, I can't believe it. Like, I'm having an experience. And I didn't think that this. So I think there is a feeling sense of wonder, even in the most simple of things, that we're not always going for like the deep and the profound. We can find that also in the simple. First one, abdominal breathing. So when we say abdominal breathing, oftentimes, we think, or we've also heard belly breathing. And just for, folks, this idea that we have the ribs here, I'm bringing my hands to my ribs. Under that is the diaphragm. And the diaphragm is like this umbrella, if you will, or it kind of, as we inhale, it comes down as the lungs expand, right? So like when we say belly breathing, what do we mean? In Yantra Yoga, we say that we're wanting to breathe at the level of the navel. When we say that, really what we're saying, what we're doing, is we're placing our attention, our mind, in our body, right? When someone says, breathe from your belly, we get a cue. Our mind thinks, oh, my belly is breathing. But really what it is, it is this inextricable connection between the body and the mind. And so in many ways, what it is a sensory cue. And I'll just have, like, since I've been talking and we've kind of been offline between warming up and me discussing, just close the eyes for just a moment. Notice the breath. Notice the quality of the breath. Notice where you feel the breath. And then I'm going to invite you to place your hands, one stacked on top of the other at the level of the navel. And breathe. feel your hands connecting at your navel center. Notice, feel the breath. Take 3 breaths. Release the hands. Keep the eyes closed. And breathe and notice. Notice how the breath moves. Notice where you feel. You may still feel even the presence, the warmth of your hands on your body. You could say this is the Reiki touch, right? Pure presence, Reiki hands. From here, place your hands on the chest. Breathe. Just allow the breath to be in whatever form. Feel. Take 2 more breaths. After the second breath, release the hands. And notice, observe the breath. Notice any change. Notice what's changed. And when you're ready, open the eyes. Like the quick start, this is just a way to orient ourselves to how simple movements, placements of the hands can alter our experience of the breath. That it's this inextricable quality. Oftentimes we, our absorption goes in one way or another, but how easily we can just use a simple hand, or the feeling presence of another person's hands on our body that can alter how we're experiencing an emotional state or a mental state or our bodies. Was this, just out of curiosity, for a feedback moment, a reflection, were folks able to feel a change in the shape or quality of the breath through the hands positions? Yeah. It's kind of weird, right? It's like, whoa. Like all I did was put my hands in 2 different positions and I felt something changing. And so it's really, I think that's one of the beauties of working with the breath, is that we can alter our experience through very simple exercises. I love my vinyasa yoga practice. 90 minutes, I feel great, but I always wondered, what is it that feels great? What is it that's shaping greatness, this feeling? Like, if I can have this experience in five breaths, like how is this happening? Another example for abdominal breath, and this can be utilized as well. Finding that straight, kind of the base for Vairochana. I'm using this as a straight spine. Dropping the arms, and then I'm going to bring my chin to my chest. Breathe through the nose. Take 3 to 5 breaths here. Notice how and where you feel the breath. This one might be different, but notice. Release the chin. Come up. And then breathe naturally. Just allow the mind, the effort to go. Again, this was a quick start, if you will, to accessing or kind of booting the abdominal breath. So you may have felt it as more of a presence up through the central line, even a bloating. So for me, I get a little bit bloaty with that. That's not to say right or wrong, but that was the intent of this particular flow, if you will. We'll do the same thing. We'll add a variation. From here, we'll bring the chin to the chest. I'll just show it first. We'll inhale. And once you feel that expansion, let the chin float up, but continue the breath and see what happens with the breath. So we'll inhale. And notice how and where you feel the breath as the head floats up. So we feel that expansion through the abdominal region, and then continue with the head as it just floats to kind of neutral. Exhale naturally. Inhale as the chin's touching the chest. And allow the head to float up. It doesn't necessarily have to go higher than we would if we were looking across the room at someone. So just and we feel perhaps even this kind of fascial expansion, the idea of like the connective structures that open the front of the body. And this might be something that we do in our practice if we're working, taking a moment and saying, hey, I need to kind of ground myself to the breath. Like, how can I do that? How can I bring myself back in the body? Just finding ourselves, either placing the hands. I know many of us are working from home these days, so we might have a screen saver, put ourselves offline for just a moment, or maybe do it. Were you gonna raise your hand? Yeah.
I was just gonna ask, is it breathe in here, and then as you go up, are you still breathing in there?
Yeah. So the idea is, like I start here, I fill, and then there's a place where I feel like I'm not able to, I would start to force, and once I get to that place, I just let the head float. And the idea of feeling is that creating that space allows for the breath to continue to expand. Yeah, but really the intent is to feel the abdominal expansion. Were folks able to feel that kind of abdominal breath? So one other way that the focus today's practice, if you will, is to really get familiar with the abdominal breathing. I want to make sure that I get to rhythmic breathing. So I'm going to make sure that I have enough time, that I don't kind of overshoot. But one thing I will say is, if people have yoga practices at home, take a simple pose, and we're not going to do this now, but one can be either a position kind of like a Baddha Konasana, or what's known as Baddha Konasana. So like knees can be bent, and then the feet flared out to like 11 and 2 o'clock, or 11 and 1 o'clock, or 10 and 2. And then either just having the hands on the belly, using this as a restorative way to come back to the breath. If this is difficult, imagine I'm in a chair or legs up the wall. Same thing. Using the position to shape and bring ourselves back to the breath. This is a side note, but this is a story that I've shared. Some people have heard this, but I used to work in a restaurant, and the bartender was studying to be trained as a Navy SEAL. And he was told by a senior that, and I don't know if this story is true. He told me this story, but I believe it to be true. He told me that he would have days and nights where he was not sleeping, that, you know, the Navy was going to really take him to the extreme. And one of the ways that he could get his energy back was to put his legs up the wall. And that kind of blew my mind, was just thinking that here is something, you know, like military. I mean, this farthest thing from my reality, invoking like legs up the wall, which is probably something that you're, you know, everyone, you know, later I found out everyone's grandmother or great grandmother or great great grandmother said, put your legs up the wall, you know, like spend some time with this, like bring your hands on your belly. So this is like an access point. It's been with us for a long time. It's a technology, if you will. It's advanced. It's advanced enough for a Navy SEAL to think that it's worth sharing with a baby SEAL. So I think that's kind of cool. I'd like to pivot and bring in a different shape, if you will, to the breath. So we're going to lie on our bellies. And we're going to take a position where I'm just going to show you the back of my feet. The heels are together. And then I'm going to place my hands either stacked one on top of another. So I'm kind of like in a, I guess like kind of a penguin position. Yes, exactly. So the heels are together. Breathe in from below. Notice where you feel the breath. Take a couple of smooth, even breaths. And pepper that in with a couple of stronger, more vigorous breaths, but still through the nose. Good. Take one more breath here. Notice, take a snapshot of where you feel the breath. And place the toes on the ground, and bring the big toes together so that the heels are facing out. Good. So the heels apart, the big toes together. Like as though you were, there you go. And breathe from here. Notice how just this change in shape alters where we may feel the breath. Now, if it doesn't elicit a change, that's okay. Remember, this is an experiential. This is an exploration. It's a discovery. And we all are in unique bodies experiencing our body, this experience. So it may not change. But it also may open up a new map. For many people, for myself in my day job, I work with bodies as a body worker. And, you know, this idea of a map of the body, right, is our nervous system is our body. So utilizing the breath, even if we are feeling challenged by this or bored, allow for it to be a discovery and to be okay in whatever experience. Release the efforts of the breath. Place the hands alongside the body. Press yourself up. And sit and just notice the breath. Allow for this position, if you will, to be like Shavasana, to be the meditation. In the Yantra yoga tradition, what we call Shavasana is known as Nalwa, and it means to rest in the natural condition, in our natural state. So right here, right now, is that same thing. all good. The last pose we call the comet. And it was meant to facilitate or experience perhaps some of the dorsal breathing for feeling and opening the breath through the back, especially when the heels are together. When we bring the toes together, the breath starts to rise up the body. And that I didn't say that, and I'm not trying it. Like next time, I think I'll ask rather than assume. But that was the intent, is that, we're altering the shape of the way that the body is accessing. We're still breathing from below, but it felt like for me when I have the heels together, I don't feel like I'm able to expand. I don't feel like the breath it feels a little bit, I feel it kind of only get to a certain point. When I bring the toes together, it starts to like go a little bit different. So this again is and that might change day to day, but this is the idea. This one's a relative newcomer to the system, Respira. I didn't learn it in my training. I didn't learn it in Yantra yoga, but like recently working with a Yantra yoga instructor who's a part of the training that I do, presented this, and I was like, okay, let's see what's going on. I don't fully buy this. And I was really kind of surprised. And so, I keep coming back to this, and I keep coming back, inviting my curiosity, not wanting to believe that, oh, I'm supposed to breathe here. Like, who cares? Like, in a sense, like it's really about experience, exploring, discovering, and riding with the breath. Next position. We're going to do one more, working from the dorsal. I'm working from a system of notes that I wanted to work with. We call it resting dove. So it's taking a position, and this is a really, I feel it nourishing. You probably will see what I mean by it, but I'm going to again come to the ground, and I'm going to bring my right leg straight. My left leg is bent out to the side. Now, if this is difficult for anyone, props can be used. My left arm is bent. My right arm is straight. And then I'm going to look towards the left side. So I'm looking towards my left elbow. And breathe into the body, breathe from below. So we've started to feel that. The cue for abdominal breath. So in Yantra yoga and in Respira, the idea is that we're training the breath from below. We call it vase breathing. But as I was saying, Respira is meant to discover and explore breathing as well. So just as we initiate the breath from below, feel and discover where you feel the breath. How does the breath want to expand? Without force, what are the qualities of the breath? By force, I mean I'm not pushing. I'm not efforting. Simply allow for the breath to arise, and allowing for the awareness of the breath and the action to be spacious. One of the intentions of the Respira system is to let go of tension. And I think this is probably one of the, at least for me, I can speak for myself, greatest challenges. Is how do I allow myself to be present without force? without trying to get anywhere. So just allow for the breath to arise, to expand, and feel where you feel that. Two more breaths here. And you can straighten the leg. Bring the head to the other side. So the right knee is bent. The right elbow is bent. Left arm is alongside left side of the body. Breathe from below. And stay with the breath. Allow the mind and breath to stay with the body. Right here, in this present moment. Two more breaths. And straighten the leg. Place the forehead on the ground, hands to either side, and just press yourself back to child's pose, and then rolling up to Vajrasana. Eyes can close. Notice where you feel the breath. You may notice a change, quality of the breath. Breath may become slower, more subtle. Notice where we feel it in the body. And eyes can come open. Just before I say anything, would anyone like to share where they feel the body or where they feel the breath in the body? All good answers, all right answers. I just would love to hear someone other than my voice for a moment. Ah, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. Okay. So dorsally, back of the body. Across the chest, was that? Yeah. You're feeling expansion. It's great. This is in the experiential flow of this practice. The practice, as it was, the idea is dorsal expansion. So like we have this pressing in. Our bodies are kind of being flattened onto the ground. So there is kind of an experience where the back edges and qualities of the body are also expanding. Again, I love hearing all of these other places because this is also a place where prana, our mind, the energy quality, remember like that the breath is not merely a physical O2, CO2 gases exchange, but there is a quality that is linked to the functional quality. And that's where things get interesting. And I would say beyond my scope, right? This is like something that yogis of the past have devoted their entire lives, in caves to really exploring the map of the body, of the subtle body. So that's also where, like finding and experiencing it in the body is one thing. Using the body to shape the body is another thing. But having a full awareness of how prana moves, and that's another, it's another level of practice and training. Yeah, excellent. What I would like to do is bring us into rhythmic breathing. So rhythmic breathing is a way, is coming directly again from Yantra Yoga. And how we're going to practice it today, we're going to start right where we are. So one of the first things that we're going to find, I'm seeing everyone getting comfortable and finding a comfortable seated position, which is fantastic, because that's exactly where and how we're going to experience rhythmic breathing. The seat, we say, is the seat of Vairochana. Vairochana was one of the early translators of Dzogchen, and specifically it brought the system of Yantra Yoga into Tibet from Odayana. And so because Respira was developed out of Yantra Yoga, we use this as the seat. And there are 7 basic points. Next week when we go into practice, we'll do a kind of a purification practice. Does Chandra do breath work and integrate it? So you may have learned the 9 purification breathings or some version of it. We'll do a version of that next week. But the important thing to recognize is that, all good meditation starts with a solid foundation. And the idea of a solid foundation, the first thing means that it's comfortable. So we always have to be comfortable, right? That's number one. The yogis of times past used lotus position. We can use half lotus. We can use easy position, whatever makes us comfortable. But that is why we do warm-ups. That's why it's really important to actually have a physical body practice as part of our meditation practice. I see a lot of old Buddhists with, aching hips, including the lamas, right? It's something that happens after seating, but it's important as well to have a movement practice. So we find that for ourselves. The first thing, stable seated position. One thing I like to do, which I was saying, which is I raise the hands as though I'm grabbing rings. I keep that length. That is my resting length. And then my arms come down. That means that I've created some space here in the ribs so that I'm not necessarily collapsing here. So I'm keeping that space, and ideally I keep it. That's the second position, is straight spine. The other aspect related to straight spine is the nose is in line with the navel, which means the back of the neck becomes long. So the chin isn't necessarily here. It's as though the nape of the neck and the occiput is lengthening. The chin is naturally tucking. And if I were to drop kind of you could say something, it would come in line with the navel. The shoulders are in line, ears are in line with the shoulders. So again, for those of us who work at things in front of us where we have a tendency towards this position, the idea is that we're lengthening here. And I know this is a practice, so we always have to come back to the practice of creating length. This is like one of my main practices all day. It's like, when am I here and when am I here? And I wear glasses, and for people who wear like the ones that have the bifocals or things, we might be doing that all the time, jutting our chin and changing the angle. So that's really important. The chest is open. We say, and I'm not going to get too deep into this, but like you could say, if you wanted to keep, if you didn't want to keep this position for meditation, the other position is the hands rest on the knees and the thumbs and the ring finger join. This is also a stabilizing prana practice. Again, this is subtle body, but I'm exempling the 7 points. Tongue is touching the upper palate. So just above, actually not like upper palate, but just in front of above the teeth. And the jaw is slightly open. So teeth are not touching. There's some space between the upper and lower jaw, and the face is relaxed. Imagine the place that we enjoy. For me, this might be like Hawaii, the Aegean Sea, just the place where everything melts away. So I feel that softness in my face. And the final point is that we feel a sense of presence. It's relaxed, yet there's a sense of presence in the whole body. And we've created this map with some of the movements of Respira. So we're starting to feel and sense the whole body, not merely the front of the body, but also the back of the body. Imagining as though we had access to the whole body. Like every cell, every fiber of our being is electric, is alive, is pulsating with prana. So this is that same feeling quality of presence in the whole body. And from here, this is where we start. And I'll just show how we're going to move. The idea of rhythmic breathing is essentially a form of coherent breathing. And again, this is something that the tables, oftentimes we're talking about coherent breathing or box breathing, right? 5-5-5 or some version of that. Vairochana's rhythmic breathing is essentially the same thing. We breathe at the rate of a steady and relaxed heartbeat. And so we use, in this particular system, the hand as a timer. Vroom, 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 vroom. 4. So we start with an inhalation of 4. And you can either work with the arm or not. And then we're going to hold the breath for 4. And then we're going to exhale for 4. And this is the way that essentially Vairochana in this system has used as a timer rather than using our mind as time. So we've entrained our bodies to use it as a muscle memory, the same way that like Steph Curry is just dropping threes all over the place. It's a muscle memory. It's not I have to make it from 38 feet, from 43 feet. I have to dribble. It's creating a memory pattern in the body. So we're going to start with 4-4-4, and then we're going to start to move the timetables. We're going to go 4-4-6, which means inhaling for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 6, and then we're going to go to 4-6-6. Okay? And we'll do that for about 10 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. My apologies. So the first cycle that we're doing, and the hand is auxiliary. So the hand is inhaling, 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 inhaling for 4. And then we hold, holding, holding, hold. Exhale, still exhaling. And that's a 4 count cycle, right? We use 4 as the basis because when we get to 6, we come back to the heart and out. All right? It'll be easier if I actually just say inhale, hold, exhale. And so that's what I'll do. But I will be using the hand as a timer. And you're welcome to use it, your own, of course, or just follow along with the inhale, the verbal cues. Okay? So find that Vairochana position and take one ordinary breath in. and out. One more breath. And out. And in. Hold. Out. In. Hold. Out. In. Hold. Out. Inhale. Hold the breath. Exhale. Smooth. Inhale. Hold. Out. In. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Out. In. Hold. Out. Last one. Hold the breath. Exhale. Pause here. Just notice. So the body likes rhythm. The heart likes rhythm. The heart is the seed of prana. The heart is also the seed of consciousness. And we know that the heart is a rhythmic organ. So one of the things that we're doing when we're doing rhythmic breathing is entraining the breath, allowing the mind to ride with the breath. But we're not forcing necessarily as we train, right? If we've trained for a marathon or anything where we have to work in stages, right? So the next count we're going to do is we're going to inhale for 4. We're going to hold for 6, actually, and exhale for 4. Okay? So after the 4th hold, then you're going to come back to the heart if you're following with the hand, and then exhaling back out. Or holding 5, 6, and then exhaling. We'll review this next week and go a little bit deeper with it. Okay? So take an ordinary breath. Ordinary breath out. And begin in. Hold the breath. Continue holding. Exhale. In. Hold. hold, out. In, hold, hold, out. Two more. In, hold, hold, out. In, hold, hold, out. And rest. Eyes open or closed. Just allow for the breath at this moment to be however it manifests. If the mind wanders, bring it back. Allow for the breath to connect with the body, the stability of the body. Right. Allow for the breath to be smooth, a sense of effortlessness, subtle. And opening the eyes. We'll just kind of seal our practice in a different way. So I'm going to bring my hands together, warming the palms, place them over the eyes, and then bringing them over the head, across the chest, over the limbs. And coming back to our seat, eyes can close. And in a gentle gesture of gratitude, offering practice, merits of the practice, will, to all beings, including ourselves. Okie dokie. Thank you all for practicing together, being in a practice mandala with the breath, with our bodies. I'll be back next Tuesday, looking forward to practicing together. Hope to see everyone back here. There's also the live streaming. So for folks who are not able to attend in person, for whatever reasons, there's also the stream. Hannah knows more than I do. Hannah is in the back in case you don't already know Hannah.
Mention Point Richmond.
Oh, yeah. So I do lead Yantra yoga practices. If folks are interested or have any questions, I'll be around after. Okay. And what?
When are those classes?
Classes are on Saturdays, twice monthly currently, 12:30 to 2. And experience or no experience, everyone's welcome. It'll be like kind of going into the stream, if you will. If you're interested in knowing more about Yantra, you're more than welcome. Yeah. No, they're not. Yeah. There are other options in that regard, and Yantra yoga and Respira Method do not have as much of a presence or home on the North American continent, to be honest. In Europe and South America and other places, Australia, they have good soil. They seem to have good roots there. Here in the United States and I'm speaking Canada, Mexico as well. It's just different. It's a different culture and different presentation, I think, as well. I'm really grateful to be here at Alembic because I feel like this is a really a great opportunity for folks who have particular interests in the offerings that are here and what this is. So very grateful. So hope to see you back. And like I said, I'll be here to answer any questions or such.